Welcome everyone to the Preschool Neuroscience Summit. Today I'm really excited to have Sara Lazar with us. She is a researcher in the psychiatry department at Massachusetts General Hospital and an assistant professor in psychology at Harvard Medical School. She has worked and studied and learned about the benefits of yoga and meditation in clinical settings and with healthy individuals. And she has an amazing TED Talk, first of all, that I wanted to mention. So everyone, please do check that out. We'll put the link to that. And she runs the Lazar Lab, which we'll also put the link to, which has lots of different publications and resources that you can check out. So welcome, Sara, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's talk, first of all, a little bit about the adult brain and mindfulness, meditation, yoga. What do we know happens when people start practicing these things, and over what time period?
So it's really interesting. Most of the research has been done on 8-week programs, but the number one question we get is, do I really have to practice for 8 weeks? How fast can it happen? And the cool thing is there are more and more studies showing that even programs as long as 1 or 2 weeks, you can start to see benefits. And some studies, it's just 4 sessions of mindfulness, you can start to see changes in certain factors. So the changes really start to happen quickly, but also it's becoming more and more clear is that they accumulate. And I like to think of it a lot like physical muscles. Sort of, the more you practice, the more you're going to benefit. And you really sort of need to continue. Some of the benefits you sort of get, it's like, once you get 2 + 2, you always know 2 + 2 = 4. Other benefits, you just have to keep practicing in order to maintain them.
Yeah. And what is it that changes in the brain that's beneficial when we do these practices?
Right. So what we see is that while people are meditating, there's a network of brain regions called the default mode network. And this network gets turned off during meditation. And this is the network of brain regions that's involved in rumination and, the little voice in your head, basically, and thinking about me. And, for most of us, that's no big deal. But for people who suffer from depression and anxiety, that network is on overload. So being able to sort of turn it off for a little while really helps with the depression and the anxiety to sort of, get a break from all that and get a little perspective on it and distance from it. And then in terms of long-term benefits, we see is that, after 8 weeks, we see brain changes, structural changes in the brain in these regions, and also that in general, that network is less active even during normal rest. So you're really turning it off during practice, and then it becomes less active over time normally. So again, it suggests less rumination, less anxiety, and more being in the moment.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that the research coming out. Sara, what about research with children? Is there specifically with
there's a lot
the
of
brain?
research.
I know there's a lot of studies that.
There's a lot of behavioral studies, but I'm not aware of any brain imaging studies. It's much harder to do brain imaging with kids, for all sorts of reasons. It's much harder. So, but if in theory, if they're doing the same thing, we should be getting similar results. But yeah, at this point, we just don't know.
Yeah, I guess because I work with very young children, I think their brains are already developing so rapidly. So it would be a great time to kind of help those neural pathways get stronger, but I guess that will be seen in the future. So tell us a little bit about how you got interested in this topic, and especially with the yoga. What were you doing that got you involved in yoga, and what did you find out for yourself?
Right. So back when I was in graduate school, my PhD work was actually focused on cell biology and how bacteria respond to stress. And at the time I was a runner, and a friend and I decided to run the Boston Marathon, and I overtrained and I destroyed my knee. And at that point in my life, this was 25 years ago now, yoga and meditation, were not well regarded. I equated yoga and meditation with tinfoil hats and crystals and this sorts of things. And so, so I went to go see a physical therapist, and they told me I had to stop running and just stretch. And as I was leaving the therapist's office, I happened to notice an ad for a vigorous yoga class. And I thought, okay, the yoga, okay, this is hocus pocus, but, maybe it's a way to, because the ad said it would promote strength and flexibility. So I thought, okay, that'll be a great way to just stretch and stay in shape, and you can still run the marathon. So I went to the first yoga class purely as a form of physical therapy. And, the teacher would say, oh, this pose will do this for you, and this pose will do that for you. And I'm like, yeah, I'm here to stretch. But what I started to see was that it was having real benefits on me. After just a few classes, I was noticing I was calmer and more centered, more relaxed. People who used to piss me off were not pissing me off. I've been a runner for many years. I always stretched, so I knew it wasn't exercise. I knew it wasn't stretching. There was something different about yoga. And so after a couple of months, I decided, I need to understand this. And so as I finished my PhD, I then switched. I've been doing neuroscience ever since. And I never did run the marathon. Everyone always asks me that. I never did run the marathon.
Yeah.
I've been doing yoga and meditation ever since. And, this eventually the yoga led to meditation. And yeah, no, and it's just really trying to understand, because I knew something was going on, right? It was like how I saw the world had changed. So I knew something about my brain had changed. And so I really wanted to understand what it was that had happened that made me so radically change my view of the world.
Yeah, I think that's, it's hard to explain, isn't it? You do something and you just know that something has changed in your reaction response and just how you feel. So Sarah, what do you recommend? We're in this crazy kind of time at the moment of COVID. The whole world has changed very drastically in the past few months. So a lot of people are feeling very stressed and anxious. Teachers who are having to teach on Zoom now and figure out, or teach in person and on Zoom, and parents who are homeschooling and working from home. What do you think, how could mindfulness or meditation help these parents, and maybe if you have some practical tips of what they might do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, no, definitely. So the other question I get is, do I have to practice 8 weeks? The other question I always get is, do I have to practice for 40 minutes? And again, I think the exercise analogy is really good, because there's more and more evidence showing that even 10 minutes of physical exercise is beneficial. And more evidence suggests that even 5 to 10 minutes of mindfulness meditation a day is beneficial. It's 30 to 40 minutes is better, but you definitely get some benefits for 5 to 10 minutes. 5 to 10 minutes. And frankly, often you can see a difference even after just 2 or 3 minutes. Like if I know something I personally do when I've got a big deadline and I see my mind going, oh my God, just like, okay, hold on a second. Take a deep breath, calm, centered, let's turn off all the thoughts, really just focusing on my breath, even for just 30 seconds or a minute. And then when I finish, I then, after that minute, I'm then more focused and more calm and better able to actually do something than I was a minute ago. So although I lost a minute of time, I totally make up for it in that I'm now, laser focused as opposed to, oh my God, and you're sort of thinking about it in the back of my mind of like, oh my God, I got this deadline. How am I ever going to get this done? Okay, what do I have to do? Oh yeah, deadline. So it's one of those things that it really helps you just stay centered. I have a son, and I also know that he's adult now, he's 22, but when he was younger, I was so much more relaxed and centered and non-reactive around him. One time, he knocked over this, big glass of milk, made a huge mess. And, part of me wanted to be like, and it's like, no. And so I just said, okay, sweetie, it's no problem, calmly picked it up, the whole thing, and like, it's okay, the whole thing. And so, so you can really see, and this has happened many times in other situations where like, you can see your initial reaction is to be like, what? It's like, no, no, no. And so you can catch yourself, before you blow up. Driving in particular, I see this quite a bit. So that's one way it helps for sure. Also, so one of the things that's important, so I told you about the main finding, which is the decrease in the brain activity in the default mode network. One of the other important changes we saw was that the amygdala, which is the main fight or flight part of the brain and the fear part of the brain, gets smaller. And the change correlates with changes in perceived stress. So now what exactly does that mean? So there's been a lot more research around this, also with pain and anxiety. And what's interesting is that because sort of, you're going to have the deadlines, you're going to have the crazy traffic, you're going to have, the kids screaming, you're going to have, all the things you have to do. The stressors, the external stressors do not change, right? Just because you start meditating doesn't mean your life becomes more calm. But what happens is it's your reaction to all of that, right? It's that, you're better able to say like, okay, there's only so much I can do. I'm just going to focus on this right now. I'm going to ignore all that, and just one thing at a time and just deal with it. And so instead of going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, and, yelling at people in your head and, getting all upset and everything else like that, just stay calm and just focus and just deal with what's right in front of you. And I think especially with COVID, I've heard so many stories of people just freaking out because they go somewhere and there's someone not wearing a mask, or there's someone reacting because of, and so then they're scared and afraid because, they're afraid of getting COVID, which is a legitimate fear, right? Mm-hmm. It's a legitimate concern, I should say. But yelling and screaming isn't going to solve the problem, right? And so if you can say, okay, there's danger here, but instead of flipping out and freaking out and screaming, I'm going to stay calm and figure out how to deal with this danger and, get around this danger. And that's actually one of my favorite quotes. It's from a movie, which is, the danger is real, the fear is a choice.
Right.
Yeah, and I've heard it's because it's really, and they always talk about like fighter pilots, who and landing on aircraft carriers, incredibly dangerous, incredibly, they've shown it actually hooked up the airline pilots as well as like all the ground crew on these aircraft carriers. Everyone on the ground, their heart is beating and racing, as the plane comes in, because it's just like they really have to land on a dime and instantly stop, right, or else they go off into the water. And and so everyone on the ground, their cortisol and their heart rate and everything's through the roof. The pilot is as calm as can be because they know, and that they're able to just remain calm and they're in control. And so I think that's really what mindfulness really does. It's like, okay, this is what I got to do, and I'm just going to do it.
Yeah, I think that's I love the quote that you just shared. I think that sums it up so well. Sarah, what about, do you think it's a good idea for parents to kind of introduce this to their children and practice together? Is that helpful as a family?
Yeah, definitely. I know a lot of people who do that. It's different usually with kids, depending on how old the child is. Like really young kids, they're probably not going to be able to do paying attention to your breath. I know lots of times what they'll do is like you ring a bell and just listen for the bell, or shake up a snow globe, something like that. Also, little kids love yoga. I actually taught yoga to my son's kindergarten class, and oh my God, a couple of girls came in and told me, the boys are not interested in it, but the girls love it. And they came in, a couple of the parents told me that, yeah, they started doing yoga with their kids. And, both the parents and the kid loved it. I could think it's a little bit more active and you can sort of see what's going on. Yeah. So, and then as the kids get into 12, 14, they can actually start meditating. And you might want to do just say, 3-5 minutes at first. Sort of, don't push it with the kids. Let you know what's good for them. But then as they get older, once they get like 17, 18, they can totally do 20, 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah. It's amazing how quickly they can build it up. I have my older one's 23 now, and my younger one's 17, and you can just see that kind of progression with them, and they do it on their own, by their own choice. So yeah, I think it's like when you individually feel the benefit, then you know that you should do it, right? And you can notice when you haven't done it. For me, that's been a big part of it. So, Sarah, let's talk about some of the maybe cognitive benefits of practicing meditation, and what you've found out in your research.
Yeah, so there's been quite a bit of research with cognition, not so much in the brain, a little bit with the brain, but mostly just tests, usually like some sort of computer tests. The best evidence is for actually working memory, which is really important. It's a very important executive function. It's the ability to take information and use it to solve problems, right? That's one of the main functions of working memory, is being able to hold information in mind. So obviously very important for learning and memory. There's also a little bit of evidence for just episodic memory, so just facts and figures, and also for sustained attention. And actually that's our newest data, which we haven't published yet, but it's similar to what's been seen in some other studies, which is we give the people a really boring task. And what you see is that, over the first few minutes, performance is pretty good, but then slowly performance starts to go down over the next 5 to 10 minutes. And then after the 8 weeks of mindfulness training, their performance stays up for much longer before it starts to trail off. And so this has a lot of implications for, especially reading, really dense material, like history, well, someone's not interested in history, like, you have to read textbooks or have to stay on task. It really shows, it really helps with staying on task, which is, especially in this day and age of the video games and the, videos in general, it's like, we don't, it really pulls for shorter and shorter attention spans. And so helping them develop a longer attention span.
Yeah, really interesting. And I that would be very helpful in schools, right? For having children to be able to pay attention. I think there's, we're hearing more and more about, addictions to technology and all these things. So I think that might become something very important for schools to look at. So Sarah, what's kind of your hope in this field? What would you like to see happen, or like to see people learn more about, or be more aware of certain things? And how do you think we can do that on a large scale?
Yeah, I mean, definitely doing it with kids is really fantastic. I know there have been a lot of studies, like I said, sort of not with imaging, but just, and it's good because, or what's interesting is that it's not just cognition, that it really does seem to help the students with their emotion regulation skills and their social skills. So it'd be really wonderful to see it sort of really widely implemented. To really see if there could be a long-term change. Because a lot of the times they just, do it for a semester or two with their kids. To really see, okay, what if you do it over 2 or 3 or 4 years? Can you really change and make a big outcome over 2 or 3 or 4 years? And that'd be really, really interesting. Trying to look at some of the neural mechanisms would be really wonderful, and to see the long-term impact on the brain. Yeah, those are both fantastic questions.
Yeah, I think it's such an exciting time now that we have some of this technology to, see inside the brain as well, and really find out what's happening. So just tell us a little bit before we finish about the Lazar Lab, what you're doing and how you help people through that facility.
Right. So actually, the study we're just finishing up is actually at the other end. We took people who are 65 to 80 years old. Okay. And we asked them, because there's this idea that we know the brain becomes less plastic, but is there like an upper age at which meditation is no longer useful? And what we show is that 65 to 80-year-olds are definitely benefiting. So it's never too late to start.
Wow. That's good to know.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that it was, again, sustained attention and episodic memory, so facts and figures, both of those were enhanced in these older adults. Also changes in mood, changes in sleep. And so that's all, so really positive benefits. So it's not just for the kids, it's also for the teachers and the parents. It really can have a benefit for everybody. And then another study we did recently, we just told people that, we recruited people who are interested in stress reduction. And what we were actually interested in was healthy behaviors, including diet. And,
Okay.
We didn't tell them that that's what we were interested in, but we gave them some questionnaires around it. And what we found is that starting these practices leads to a healthier lifestyle. People are more likely to stop eating junk food and start eating healthier food, and they get better sleep schedules, these sorts of things. So it seems to really help catalyze just an overall healthier behavior, a healthier lifestyle.
Wow, that's very interesting, and yeah, definitely needed. I think so. During this kind of time of COVID, we've heard about like lots of people kind of gaining weight and all kinds of other things coming up. So maybe a more mindfulness practice could be helpful for everyone for many different reasons. Well, thank you so much, Sara, for coming on and for sharing all your knowledge and those practical ideas and the research that you're doing. Just want to remind everyone we will put the links to the Lazar Lab and the information about Sara if you want to read some of the research that she's been doing, and also a link to the book that she contributed to, which is called Meditation and Psychotherapy. And thank you again, Sara, for coming on and for sharing those ideas with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.